Welcome, 8th graders, to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to be your guide today. We've got a truly unique and empowering session ahead of us, because we aren't just looking at standard math formulas. We're actually combining the strict logic of algebra with our broader spiritual purpose. So, grab your notebooks, focus in, and let's get ready to grow our minds and our hearts. Today, we're going to take formulas you see every single day and learn how to, bend them to our will. That's exactly what a literal equation is all about. It's an equation loaded with two or more variables, and our job is to isolate just one of them. We're basically taking the complex and making it crystal clear.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start off with working heartily for God, then look at why your math thinking matters. After that, we'll be reviewing key equation skills, and then we'll jump into let's solve practice problems. We'll wrap things up with seeing truth from every angle, and finally, why education needs morality.
All right, starting with Section 1, Working Heartily for God. This is all about tying it together with the big idea.
Okay, let's dive into this. Colossians 3:23 reminds us, whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord and not for men. Applying your learning, checking your understanding, and pushing through a really difficult page of equations, it isn't just busy work. When you're frustrated by a tough problem, staring at a page where the numbers just do not seem to align, I want you to remember this verse. It completely shifts your perspective. Working through that struggle is actually a direct, incredibly practical way to honor God with the mind He gave you. Every bit of effort you put into understanding a concept is an act of working heartily.
Moving right along to Section 2, Why Your Math Thinking Matters, as we strive for true mastery and excellence. We really want to move away from the mindset of just hitting the target and getting the right answer. True mastery is so much more than that. It's about explaining your math thinking clearly. It isn't just about circling a number at the bottom of the page and moving on to the next thing. It's about checking your work, really digging in to find your own mistakes, and communicating your reasoning with absolute confidence. When you force yourself to articulate exactly how you got from point A to point B, you are literally building new, stronger neural pathways in your brain. You aren't just memorizing, you're becoming an actual mathematical thinker. And that is what shows true, deep understanding.
Section 3, Reviewing Key Equation Skills. Let's look at the algebraic tools you absolutely need. Let's open up our mental toolbox and lock in the key skills we need for this lesson. First up, you need to quickly recognize literal equations, which, like we mentioned, are just equations with multiple variables. Then we need to use inverse operations to isolate specific variables. An inverse operation is simply the action that perfectly undoes whatever is happening to your variable. Think of using division to undo multiplication. Once you've got that down, you can rearrange any geometry and science formulas, solve real-life problems, and, most importantly, justify and explain your steps. Mastering this toolbox doesn't just help you pass a test today. It builds immense confidence and prepares you for more advanced high school algebra, chemistry, and physics.
All right, Section 4. Let's solve practice problems. Time to put your skills to the test.
As we go through these practice questions, I'd love for you to choose at least one problem to explain fully in writing, step by step. Let's kick things off with our first geometry formula from the homework, the area of a circle, a equals pi times r squared. The big question is, how do we solve for r? Think about your inverse operations here. To get r completely by itself, what do we have to undo first? Remember, when we're solving and moving things across that equal sign, we're essentially doing our order of operations, PEMDAS, backwards. So the crucial point is that we must work in reverse. Because r is being squared and then multiplied by pi, we tackle that multiplication first. We divide both sides by pi to undo the multiplication. That leaves us with r squared equals a over pi. Then we undo the exponent. Taking the square root cancels out the exponent entirely. This leaves us with our final isolated variable. R equals the square root of the fraction a over pi. And hey, always remember to justify those steps mathematically.
Let's keep building on this logic and apply it to a three-dimensional geometry formula. Homework question 2. V equals L times W times H. This is the formula for the volume of a rectangular prism. So how do we solve for W? Well, look at what's happening to the W. It's being multiplied by the length and the height. How do we effectively undo that multiplication so W stands completely on its own?
Exactly right. We use division. We divide both sides by L and H. That leaves us with W equals V divided by the product of L and H. Excellent hard work on this, guys. You're clearly recognizing the fundamental logic behind isolating the variable. Whatever operation you do to one side, you absolutely must do to the other to keep it balanced. And think about why this is so incredibly useful. If you know the volume a shipping box needs to hold, and you already know its length and height, this rearranged formula allows you to instantly find the exact width you need to build it. You are quite literally manipulating reality through math.
Okay, let's turn up the speed a little bit. Let's group homework questions 3 and 4 together to test your recognition of the rules. First, the simple interest formula, I equals P times R times T. Let's remember what those mean. Interest equals the principal amount times the interest rate times time. Our goal here is to solve for T, the time. Then we have the circumference of a circle. C equals 2 pi times R. For this one, I want you to solve for R, the radius.
Let's review those isolated variables. For time, T equals I divided by the product of P and R. For the radius of the circle, R equals C divided by 2 pi. It is just so fantastic to see how consistently these algebraic rules work. They literally never change. Once you know the rules of inverse operations, you possess a master key. This key can unlock literally any formula in science, engineering, or mathematics. You aren't just memorizing one single formula, you are learning the underlying code to manipulate all of them. Now for question 5, our final homework check. Let's see how these literal equations immediately apply to the physical world around us. You want to drive 180 miles in 3 hours. What is your average speed? This uses our standard formula where distance equals rate times time. Let's set that equation up first. Our distance is 180. That equals our unknown rate, R, times our time, which is 3. So 180 equals R times 3, but we need to solve for the rate. To get the rate by itself, we need to undo that multiplication. So we divide both sides by the 3 hours. 180 divided by 3 gives us exactly 60 miles per hour. Take a second to celebrate your success here. You've successfully translated a real-world scenario into an equation, used an inverse operation, and calculated a correct rate that you can use to plan a road trip every single day. Section 5, Seeing Truth from Every Angle. Let's get into our biblical morality tip of the week. Let's take a deep breath and deliberately slow our pace down a bit here. We're going to seamlessly transition from these mechanical math steps into the profound spiritual metaphor of our lesson. You see, rearranging an equation is not just a math rule. It's a really powerful way to see a new side of the truth. And this brilliantly illustrates how God invites us to grow in our understanding. When we manipulate an equation, we aren't changing the truth of it, right? We are seeking His wisdom by looking at it from every single angle to find the exact piece we need. In everything you do, always ask yourself, what does God want me to learn from this? Whether you're staring down a complicated literal equation or facing a highly stressful real-life challenge, like maybe a sudden, difficult conflict with a close friend, the ability to step back, shift your perspective, and look at the situation with honesty and clarity is a tremendous gift. By viewing a disagreement from your friend's angle without losing the truth of the situation, you can find a resolution. It's a powerful tool, but it's also a serious responsibility we have to act on.
And finally, Section 6, Why Education Needs Morality. This is the core philosophy of our learning.
This really brings our explainer to its philosophical climax. This is exactly why HeroesmartAcademy intertwines biblical morality with every single subject. Yes, even your 8th grade algebra. Think about 2 very different paths. Imagine an education totally devoid of a moral compass. It's kind of like walking a rocky path of thorns under a storm cloud, ultimately leading to painful, destructive choices. But an education rooted in morality, that elevates you to the mountaintop. It leads directly to peace and wisdom. Think about it realistically for a second. What is the point of being smart and supposedly highly educated if you just use that intellect to make choices that hurt yourself and the people around you? Education without a moral compass is fundamentally incomplete. True education builds your character right alongside your intellect. Romans chapter 8, verses 6 through 7 tells us, "For to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the spirit is life and peace. For the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile to God, for it does not submit to God's law, indeed it cannot." This scripture so warmly reminds us that keeping our minds grounded in spiritual truths brings a lasting peace of mind. It's a promise, and I can tell you for sure that is exactly the peace we experience as we engage deeply and honestly with this academic content, knowing it serves a much higher purpose.
So, 8th graders, I want to end this explainer with a final, thought-provoking question for you to carry into your week. Take a real moment to consider this. How will you use your education to shift perspectives and make godly choices today? I challenge you to take the algebraic mastery you proved today, combine it with true spiritual wisdom, and go make an incredibly positive impact in your world. Thank you so much for learning with me, and I'll see you in the next explainer.